Yo, yo, yo.
What is going on, people?
Yeah.
We are back for another Wednesday of What's Up People News.
You know it, you know it. And if this is your first time tuning in, we're a local online news show. We talk about local, national, and international news with the segment we call Personal News, where we talk about relationship type topics and things of that nature. But I am your co-host, Frosty McNuggetts.
And I'm your host with the most, Frosty Oreos.
And this lovely lady that you see in between us, a wonderful, wonderful guest. I hope you guys will enjoy this. We have local candidate running for office, Julia Mejia.
Mejia,
I apologize.
Okay, everybody say that.
Mejia.
Okay, good. Everybody out there say it. Mejia. That's
Mejia.
right. I'm the only Julia Mejia on that ballot, so now you know my name.
Julia Mejia. I apologize.
Buenos días, buenas noches. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for coming.
Exactly.
We've had a few guests on the show. We've had a lot of guests on the show. But
we've had some good guests.
This is the first time we have had a guest that's actually out there.
Yeah.
With her name on the ballot, like
doing the work.
Doing the work.
So it's an honor for us to have you on the show.
Yes.
So as we always do, how's your week been so far?
My week has been great. I'm a little tired, man. I did about 50 hours this week. That college rush was crazy.
I can only imagine.
Yeah,
and it ain't over yet, is it?
It's over.
Oh, it is?
It's over, but I'm still drained from it. You know what I mean? But other than that, I'm just getting everything together, getting ready for the day. You know about it.
Yeah.
Nobody else knows about it, but you know about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just getting ready for that, and continuing my journey of growth. That's it. How about yourself? How's your week?
My week's been good. Struggling. Just trying to get everything together. As far as trying to get Miss Julia here and all that, but other than that, my week's been good. Ready to finish it out. Oh, shout out to Lil Man, love you. Gotta shout him out. Had to. Yeah, Daddy loves you. All the cameras is one person, but yeah, Daddy loves you, man. So yeah, I'm good. And
how has your week been?
Yes.
What's today?
Today is the 4th.
Wednesday. Wow. Well, I don't know. My week has not ended yet. I feel like I've had a month in this week.
Wow.
I've been working all weekends. I have been going nonstop. So my week feels like a month right about now.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's all good. I love every minute of it.
Excellent.
I'm not complaining. I feel really blessed to be able to do what I love. So.
And that's awesome. That's what's up.
That's awesome. So before we get into all the other stuff, right? I just want to get right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
While we got the people here and we got the people watching.
We got their attention.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
Yes.
Let's let the people know who Miss Julia Mejia is. Well, she's gonna let them know. Yeah. We're just gonna ask the question.
Okay,
right?
That sounds good.
So, our first question, or my first question, would be, what made you want to get into this particular race? What made you want to get into politics?
Well, I think first it might be helpful for people to know a little bit about who I am and how this race connects to my life.
Yes, please let us know.
So I am originally from the Dominican Republic. I came to this country when I was 5, and I was raised by a single mom who was undocumented for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that taught me at the age of 9 to learn how to fight for her and everybody else from around the way. So I was that one kid that everybody would bring to the court, to the welfare office, to Section 8, because they knew if they brought me, they were going to get what they were looking for.
Right.
And while I was there, I was going to, speak a little truth to power, because oftentimes people treated us less than just because we were poor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so my life has always been political. From growing up in the hood, if you will. I grew up in Dorchester. Actually, I grew up in a lot of spaces because my mom could not afford to stay in one place long enough for me to make friends.
So you were always constantly moving around.
Yep. So we landed first in Jamaica Plain, then we ended up in Roxbury. I lived in like 5 or 10 different places in Dorchester, and it wasn't until I was in the 5th grade that I had a stable place to stay long enough for me to, make friends. And so those experiences have always shaped every decision that I've made. I'm the first person in my family to graduate high school, college, buy a house, get my mom out of Section 8. I covered the presidential elections for MTV 150 years ago. Trying to get young people to register to vote.
Yes,
so I was always civically minded even then. But I really didn't understand the inner workings of politics. All I knew is that there were not enough people in positions of power representing us and our issues. And because of that, and because I became the first person in my family to graduate high school, you know, education is a big deal to me. That's
it should be to everybody.
That's part of my policy platform.
Nice.
But I just got really, to be honest with you, I got tired of elected officials knocking on my door, asking me for their vote, and then you wouldn't see them anymore. And that just felt always really transactional. So I launched an initiative called Determined Divas. It's We Are Divas, just so you know, in a good way. But the goal really was to get low-income communities and Black and brown people in particular engaged in politics. And it was through that work that I got to meet Ayanna Pressley, and then I got to meet people who were really about the work.
Nice.
And so creating spaces for regular folks like us to be working with elected officials on informing policies. And through that work, you know, everybody was always saying, well, when are you gonna run? And I'm like, no, I'm behind the scenes, you know. I'm a convener. I like to bring people into spaces that normally wouldn't be in those spaces. And I like to bring the people out from the inside out here so that they can know what's up, right? But when Ayanna won, I'm telling you, I was one of the first, she called, you know, people call when they're making the decision.
Yeah.
I was one of the first 5 people that she called when she decided to run for Congress. And I said, well, this is the moment I've been waiting for, you know, like since I met you, I knew you were destined for great things.
Right.
And I became a big volunteer on her campaign. I was so super inspired by her. And when she won, I got a call from the Herald because I was a super volunteer. And they wanted to know what I thought, and I was like, oh my God, I'm running for office. And I just said it, you know, I didn't ask for permission, I didn't kiss the finger or the ring or whatever it is that they say. I just felt like it was time. It's, you know, it's time for people like us to not just so have a seat at the table, but to really be leading conversations in ways that is really reflected of the realities that we've been through. You know, and as a single mom, an immigrant to this country, and someone who lived in a life of poverty, like who better to represent us than somebody who has lived it?
Right.
And I feel like as a community organizer, I'm the missing link, or one of the missing links inside city government, because as an organizer, my whole mission has been to convene people, to, you know, fight for the things that we care about. And I think as an activist and an advocate, a lifelong advocate, every job that I've ever had has been to educate and empower and inspire people to step into their power. Even when I worked at MTV, all the shows that I worked on were cause related, or things that people needed to hear about. Take a stand against discrimination, fight for your rights, even covering the presidential elections. And every True Life episode that I worked on was about what mattered. And so running for me, this is just a natural progression of my own career, and, you know, an opportunity to really bring the work to another level. And I'm running citywide because for me, I just don't want to be worried about what's happening in my own backyard. You know, I really feel like we have an opportunity to bring everybody together, to hold everybody accountable to the type of city that we want. You know, and I always say from Mission Hill to Beacon Hill, from Back Bay to South Bay, from Grove Hall to Faneuil Hall, and everywhere in between, the conversation has to be about how do we create space for those who have, to recognize those who have not, and put people in positions to really be able to speak for themselves. So I'm not professing to be anybody's voice. That's not what I am. That's not what I'm trying to be. I want to be that microphone, so that people can amplify their own voices.
I like that. That's what's up.
That's my goal in getting into City Hall, is to really change the way we do business. And I think one of the biggest things that I've been pushing for is civic engagement and accountability, because I believe nothing about us without us is for us. And if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And so my hope is to really create the infrastructure for real meaningful voice, So I want to change the time we do public hearings. They should not happen at 11 o'clock in the morning when every day folks like us on a Wednesday when we can't participate.
Right, and they can't really get the issues and miss out. And I try to, they'll have like a Facebook post, like a live stream, but it'll be real grainy and you really can't hear what the people are saying, or so no, that's what it is. That's what's up.
And you know what I would like to do even with those Facebook Lives is that we need to go back to those comments and see what people had to say.
And really
use those voices, because sometimes people might be sitting in the bathroom, you know, looking at their Facebook Live and commenting. You know what I mean? You got to make things accessible to people, like by any means necessary. And the other thing that I'm proposing is I'm going to be offering childcare at our public hearings, because if we're serious about removing barriers to engagement, then we need to be able to create infrastructure for people to really be able to participate. And I just don't want all of these public hearings to be at City Hall. Why do we always have to trek over there? I want them to be here in the community. And I think also, more importantly, it's just not, oh, we hosted one and, you know, 10 people showed up from Roxbury, so check, we did that. Or, you know, 20 people showed up in Dorchester, check, we did that. No, I want to build the infrastructure. How many people, let's create some benchmarks. We have to speak to at least 300 people in Dorchester. You know, we have to vet these conversations to make sure that the people's voices are heard. And that's what I've always been about. And that's the type of leader that I want to be when I go inside, because I believe I can bring the inside out and the outside in if we're really about the work.
That's what it is.
That's everything she just said was powerful.
Yeah.
It's like, it makes me like,
you can't go wrong with
nothing
that.
else, because she just.
So I'm done. Drop that mic, y'all.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's about.
But I do have a question that's not on here.
No, ask
I do have a question. So I'll say some of our viewers, a lot of them really aren't into politics. They have, you know, their thoughts about things, and they voice that, you know, on our questions and on our feeds.
True.
But for those who may not know, all right, you're running for Boston City at large, council at large, right? What are some of the tasks, or what are some of the jobs that a person of this position, if you won, what is it that they actually do to help these people that really don't understand?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I'm glad that you asked, because not only that, there are a lot of people who don't even know that there's an election going on. And there are a lot of people who don't realize that you have your local district counselor, and then you have 4 at-large counselors that represent the entire city. Okay. And some people don't even know that you can choose up to 4 people in that election. There's 15 candidates running, and you have the option to pick up your top 4 when you vote on September the 24th. That information people don't have either, because there are a lot of people who like, they might like Priscilla, they might like Domingos, they might like Alejandra, they might like David Halbert, and they also like me, and they feel like they're cheating on their friend because they're gonna vote for me. And I'm like, nah, you can vote for all 4 of your top choices. So that's really important for people to recognize, is that no matter where in the city of Boston that you live in, you can pick up to 4 at-large representatives to in this election. So that I just wanted to just put that out, because there's a lot of miseducation around that. So in terms of what City Council does, a lot of the work is constituent services, and that's basically like, if you, like, most calls come in because there's a pothole, right? There's issues around zoning, there's issues around affordable housing. Like, we have the power to be able to write legislation and ordinances that will make our lives easier.
And that's why, go ahead.
And so a lot of the things get passed through public hearings, negotiating with the mayor. One of our biggest things that we're tasked to do is to approve the city budget. That's one of our biggest responsibilities, is making sure that we look at where that money is and where that money's going and who's getting it.
And that's very, very
and that's
important.
a big responsibility, and oftentimes those dollars are not trickling down into the communities. And so having city councilors who reflect the realities of the people, then I'll be able to advocate to ensure that we have more funding for education, that we have more funding for housing. And the other thing that we do is I'll give you a really good example. Ayana, when she won, she created an entire committee for women and girls and families, right? And all of the work that she did, a lot of the work that she did was really making sure that families had the resources. She held a public hearing on school disciplinary practices. It's really elevating the issues that our city is contending with, and then based on identifying what the issue is figuring out how can we resolve that issue through writing a piece of legislation, you know, and getting the resources. And then the other part of the city council, do you know you have a neighborhood liaison?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Do you know, right? And so each city councilor has a neighborhood liaison, and those neighborhood liaisons go to civic association meetings. They listen to what's going on in the city. They report back to the councilors, right? I think that we have an opportunity to really look at how we can utilize our neighborhood liaisons beyond just constituent services. It's like, you know, for me as a community organizer, I'm not just knocking on doors to get my message out as a candidate. My hope is that once I win, I'm still going to be knocking on doors.
Still
because
engaging those people.
Right, because we need to roll up our sleeves and convene people to continue to inform us, right?
And kind of meet them where they're at, rather than just, you know, I'm an elected official on this pedestal.
No.
You know, you really
No, you
get
can't
down
do
there.
that.
Well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna wait for her to win, right? When she get in there, I hope she knocks on my door because I have some gripes about a couple of things.
Where you live at?
I live in Dorchester now.
Where in Dorchester? Dorchester's big.
Harvard Street.
Harvard Street, okay. So, what intersection? Like closer to Washington or closer to Blue Hill Ave?
Closer to Blue Hill Ave.
Okay.
Right over there by the little DYS building.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I went to Dorchester High. So I'm a dot girl all the way.
There it is.
I went to the original Dorchester High, like when before they changed it, because they keep changing the names of schools everywhere they go. But I was an original Dorchester High graduate. And I actually dropped out of high school and I went back. And I ended up graduating from there, and I was pushing 20 by the time I got out. And so when you talk about Dorchester, I mean, I'm representing the entire city, but I think having grown up in Dorchester, I think that we're just now beginning to see resources being poured into Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan. We've been neglected for a long time, communities of color in particular. And I think that as a city councilor, that's one of the things that I'm really going to be paying attention to. I see the intersection of race and socioeconomic status as equally important. Right? Because when you grow up with nothing, you know how to work with what you have, but we shouldn't have to make the work so difficult for people to get up and out of poverty.
Right.
You know?
And a couple things. One, to talk about the work. That's kind of one of the reasons we started the show was to educate the people, let them know what's going on, and just be able to give them another outlook and give them a message that they may not hear from, you know, mainstream news, and to give a platform to local businesses, people in the community to say, hey, come on the show, talk about, you know, what you have going on, so that you can reach a broader audience and, you know, get your message out there for the people. And real quick, the second thing is that having, and I've always said this, having people that live, breathe the laws that are passed are the best people to tell you what's wrong,
That's right.
what's good, and how to improve on it, and what's not working. Because the people that make the laws, the majority of them, they live elsewhere, they're not in our communities, they're not in the day-to-day struggle, life, whatever that we go through. And so they don't feel firsthand the laws and repercussions of these laws and actions and things of that nature. So by having someone like you that is in the mix, that breathes, lives, sleeps, wakes up in this environment, is, I feel, more suited to be in office versus someone who runs a Fortune 500 company who makes, you know, $300,000 every hour. Like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Right.
You know, much applaud to your success. But that brings, there's a disconnect when you have someone like that
That's right.
saying, hey, you know, you can't do this in that area, or if you're a lady, you can't have, we can control what, you know, what you do with your body. You
That's
know,
right.
you don't live that life. You're not, you know, you're not a lady, you're a guy. So how can you understand?
That's right.
I mean, you can relate and empathize, but how can you tell this person, you know, how to conduct themselves? So
That's right.
all that again is to say, someone like you that's been in the thick of things and has worked in different areas and different industries and able to bridge that
Yeah,
gap.
absolutely.
That's what we need. We need more people like you.
The biggest thing,
Thank you.
and the most important thing is, she's been through the struggle.
Facts.
So she knows how to, like she said, she knows how to work it, she knows how to maneuver it. And, you know, taking that information from the people who are going through it now
Facts.
and trying to make it better or a little bit easier, that's something that we need.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's
That's
exactly
something
what we
that we
need.
need.
Yeah, and I would have to say is that, you know, one of the things, I feel like we've waited for so long for things to be different for us, right, for our people. And I think that now is the time, and I go back to the fact that I'm always solution-based. You know, we can't come to the table with just a whole bunch of complaints. It's like, when you know what you should do,
Yep.
and because you've already done it, then there's no reason why we already know what works. So let's pour resources into what we know what works, instead of deferring to Harvard and their big studies and research on us. I think that,
I have my own opinions about that.
you know,
but
I think that it becomes very dangerous, because what I have seen is that they always come from a place of deficit for our people. And if we really look at the fact that we've been dodging bullets out here, right? That we're overcoming trauma, that we know how to make a dollar stretch. You know,
like
there are so many things that are positive about our struggle, but every time you read of something in the news, they always lead with what's wrong with us. And that's something that we need to revisit, because there's so much strength in our struggle right here, but we don't talk about that. We're always in deficit mode. And I think that that's a mentality shift that we also need to challenge. And that's one of the reasons why, in terms of you've been running, every space that I've been in, I've been very intentional about changing the conversation. Because that's what we need to do. We need to change the conversation. We need to redirect it. And that's what I feel is missing in every dialogue that I've been in, is the voices of the people. And not to say, I'm gonna be honest, and not to say that I am the voice of the people, because I don't profess to be that. You know, I said that earlier, like, it's really clear for me is that my responsibility is to amplify the voices, not to be the voice. And oftentimes people come into spaces as though they are the authority of all and be all, and I'm not trying to be that. And people who are running for office sometimes get themselves in situations that they don't need to be in, because they're saying they're going to do X, Y, and Z, then they can't keep the promises that they've made along the way, because they haven't gotten the buy-in of the people. And this is something that I don't want people to do anything to us. I want to work with us so that we can move the work forward. And it's not just about one person doing it all. And I feel like I'm really excited to join the city council. We have a lot of progressive women of color in that space right now. And I think
I love hearing that. I love hearing that.
you know, I think that we got an opportunity. I'll be the first Latina. Well, I'm an Afro-Caribbean Latina. I want to be clear about that. I claim my black roots, because when our ancestors were shipped, the first port of they landed in the Caribbean was the Dominican Republic, the island of the Española. And so I want to be really clear that I claim my roots in that way. And most Latinos don't, but I am one that does, because I know I am black.
Give it up, man. You don't hear that a lot. I personally
And
don't.
I'm a
So that's what's up.
I'm a light-skinned Latina, and I can easily, just get by. But you know what? It's not about that. When I'm in forums and that are specifically for Latinos, they ask me what I'm going to do for Latinos, and I can cater to that whole crowd and give them a whole bunch of baloney, but I don't. You know what I do? I'm going to do what I'm going to do for Latinos, the same thing I'm going to do for my black and brown brothers, for the Asian community, because you know what? We're all dealing with the same issues. So
Y'all
I'm not
better be
trying to
clapping
conquer
out
and
there.
divide.
Y'all better be clapping.
Because at the end of the day, we're all struggling, and that's what they do. They force us to divide. And I think that what we need to do is recognize that we're all in the same struggle.
Facts.
And
Facts.
that's how we're going to move this work forward, is if we work in collaboration with all of us.
And I totally agree with that. And that's one of the things that ruins us as a people, as a whole. So, for an example, if you win,
When I win.
Well, when you win.
Into existence, y'all.
I'm
out
sorry.
there.
When you win, when you win, the Latino community is probably gonna fall on you. They're probably gonna, hey, do it for us. It's just like when a person of color wins, it's like, do it for us. You know what I mean? We gotta
I'm gonna
do
be
it.
like, nah, B, I'm doing it for everybody. How about that?
And that's how
right,
it gotta
and
be.
that's how it needs to be.
And that's-
But at the same time, and it was, I just want to reflect back really quick on something that you said about being a voice. We have to get the people to talk.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We can't hear their voices if they don't say anything. And this is like when we first started this, and we could shoot back 3 years ago. We was telling people, and they're like, "Oh, what are we gonna?" Listen, they have these forums, they have this, they have that. You have to go and speak on it, because when they have these forums and nobody comes and shows up and nobody speaks on it, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. One thing that I'm really proud to say is that the organization that I founded, it's CPlan, it's the Collaborative Parent Leadership Action Network. And at all of our events, we have a minimum of 80 to 100 people that show up.
That's awesome.
And you can go through my Facebook, my CPlan, and you'll see all the photos there to prove it. And the reason why I say that is because the spaces that we've created is about bringing everybody into that space in a way that is comfortable, right? I think that one of the reasons why we have been able to be so successful is because we're about deep, meaningful relationship building in those spaces. And people can come as they are and be their true, authentic selves and learn with each other. And I think that that is one of the things that I see missing in a lot of these activist spaces, is that people get right down to business and there's no real relationship building. There's no space for vulnerability. And I think that people who don't know what's going on, they just kind of like fall back. But what we do is we create spaces for them to lead the conversations. And I think that that is also what's missing in city government. And I think even the way we do public hearings, I understand that things need to be recorded and on the record. But I would say for me is that I would do a talk and turn real quick. Before we even get started, why don't you talk to the person who's next to you and share with them why this hearing is important to you. Like, we need to be able to build relationships with people.
That's where it
And
starts.
oftentimes people come in because they care about the issue, but we need to be able to do things in ways that continue to build community.
Yep.
And that talk and turn is only going to take a minute, if at most. But that minute that you take to create a level of engagement
really build
is going to change the way the dynamics in that space. And I think that elected officials should also, we should not only rely on community organizers to bring people out. Elected officials need to be promoting and knocking on doors and getting people to come into spaces. We can't just win and be like, okay, bye, see you later.
Yeah.
No, I built my platform from the bottom up, or from the ground up, actually, if you will, with people who are living the realities and doing the work. That's how we built our platform. Every single issue was vetted through the people who are living the realities, because for me, the work begins after I win. And if I'm able to build a coalition of folks who are ready to roll up their sleeves, it's going to be so much easier for us to move the needle,
And I just want to say, first thing is, if people really want change, if you really want to see improvements in your community, you know, equal pay, more jobs, better jobs, you have to vote local.